Welcome to Tabernacle Talk, an interactive Bible study of Tabernacle Christian Church in Durham, North Carolina, and hosted by Pastor Greg Cousin. 2 Timothy 2:15 says that we should study to show ourselves approved unto God, a workman that should not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. We welcome you to join in this study by sending in your questions or comments as we endeavor to equip the body of Christ to effectively carry the good news to the nation. Now, here's Pastor Cousin.
About a year ago, the pastor asked me to do a leadership training on spiritual leadership and spiritual guidance in churches, and he hosted a seminar or conference with many of the local pastors and ministers in the community. And it was a 2-day training. But in that training, I had a chance to talk about several aspects of leadership and how to not only become a strong leader, but as well develop leaders under you so that you're not working yourself to death as ministers. When I was doing the teaching, part of the teaching required us to talk about the goals, which Pastor has been talking about over the last few weeks, and specifically how to develop goals that really are realistic and attainable and relevant to your life and wherever you're going. So today, I want to go ahead and present that same teaching that I presented at that conference to you, and I would still like to do the same thing that we have been doing with our teachings so far, and that is make them interactive as possible. If by chance, while I'm doing the instruction and the teaching, you have questions or comments or even personal little anecdotes that you want to share with us, please feel free to intervene and go ahead and share those with us. So what I'm talking to you today about is SMART goals. SMART goals is basically a process in which you know that what you're doing makes sense. Many times, whenever we set goals, even ideas that we have sound good to us initially. They sound real good. We come up with inventions in our mind, and we think like, this is gonna work, this could work. But realistically, whenever you examine the practicality of it, it's not practical. Sometimes it's too late. Somebody else has already started it, and we have to reevaluate what we're doing. I remember in particular us coming to the point where we started talking about this particular format for our Bible study and our services, where we're making them interactive, and how we had to go through the step-by-step process of determining what was going to be the obstacles in our way, as well as how were we going to pursue or move forward in making it happen. And even though we set certain dates and things that we set deadlines in on what we want to accomplish, when we wanted to have things accomplished, we were able to make those modifications only because we had set those dates and we knew where we were going. So we made things very realistic. So whenever we want to talk about goals, we want to think about goals not only in our personal lives, in our professional lives, but in every aspect of our lives. And I want us to continue to use that same process that we use in even developing this particular format in everything that we're doing. So the goals that we're going to be talking about, are the type of goals we're talking about, are what we call SMART goals. SMART goals, the acronym stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. So whenever we're talking about setting up a goal, the first thing you have to do is make sure that the goal is specific. You can't say, for example, if you want to go on a trip somewhere and you say, I'm going on a vacation. There is no way you can go on a vacation if you don't know where you're going. Okay, so I want you to imagine that. So you got all these plans together, which I don't know what they're going to look like if you have no idea where you're going in the first place, but you're going on vacation. I'm going on vacation. I remember several years ago watching this movie, a Richard Pryor movie called Brewster's Millions. Who's seen that? You seen Brewster's Millions? Brewster Millions said, we're going to start a business. We're in the business of doing business. And he was just spending, he had $30 million he had to spend in 30 days in order to inherit $300 million. But the smartest thing he did, if you want to, you need to go see that movie because it's hilarious. It is just funny. But it's good because it has some great principles. It has principles about how people use each other. It has principles about how to actually do business. And it has principles about how people can be very deceiving and deceptive. But more importantly, this idea, he said, we're in business. We're doing business. Whenever someone asked him about what business are they doing, he said, we're doing business. You talking about a good way to get rid of $30 million is to not have a focus on what kind of business you're doing. And that's what he did. So he was doing business. He was like, hey, he had someone come in and build a room. He said, I want to make you to make a room that I would feel good to die in. Which didn't make sense at all, okay? But the person gave him all this money to make the room, and as soon as they finished the room, they came in and showed it to him. He knew they didn't spend enough. He said, this is good, but it's not quite there. Tear it up and do it over again. Well, now they have no idea where they're going, so this is the importance of clearly identifying a specific and targeted goal that is reachable, attainable, and realistic. So whenever you look at a specific goal, there's just such a greater chance when you know exactly where you're going, where there is no doubt what your objective is. If you make a general goal, it's not going to happen. To set a specific goal, you must answer what we consider the 6 W's. Okay, I didn't throw up a gang sign. I'm not West Side. All right? So, yes, all right. The 6 W's. Okay, I don't know where that came from. It just came off the top of my head. When I looked at you, Rob, I said, you get me right. You ask me a question I can't answer. But that's okay. I'll defer to the pastor. Anyhow, so the 6 W's are A. I'll start with 1. 1. Who is involved? Who is it going to impact? Who you're expecting to carry it out? Who is it going to affect? B, what? What do you want to accomplish? Basically, at the end, if you were to measure, did you actually achieve what you wanted to achieve? What was it? And what was it going to be? 3, where? Identify the location. Where is this going to happen at? If you're talking about losing weight at the gym and it's for you, where are you going to go to? Are you going to go to the gym? Are you going to walk in the park? Where's this going to happen at? And I'm throwing out a lot of little scenarios as we continue to talk because it's applicable. What I'm discussing is applicable across the board in every aspect of your life. So whether I may say something in reference to job or work, I may say something in reference to your personal life, I may say something in reference to your relationship. But the bottom line is it's all applicable across the board when you're looking at establishing good goals. The next one, 4, when? Establish a time frame. Do you have an objective? If we were talking about starting the online program that we've started recently here at the church, what was the time frame going to be? Were we going to do this in 2018, 19, or 20? Or did we even care? And not having that time frame set of when this was supposed to happen would have only caused us to drag along on the whole process. But we'll be talking about that a little bit later on in this discussion as well. Which identify what requirements and constraints of what you're trying to accomplish. Do you have the money to do what you want to do? Is the person that you engage with in making this happen have the same engagement and the same interest, or are they going the opposite way?
I got a question for you.
So what we're going to do, we're on camera. You're not putting me on the spot. Go ahead. Go ahead.
We go back to where.
Uh-huh.
You said where, like, asking myself, I want to be a trainer and I want to travel and do the training. Do you have, so you're saying you got to have a base headquarters, or it can be like in various...
You know, some people headquarters are in their car when they're doing traveling work. I mean, I've had people come out to our house doing business and they would go to the trunk of their car, pull out this little what did they call that little printer? It was like a little carbon printer, itty bitty printer. Print great. It's just they call it a little printer. And technology. So great. They just work right there. So what I'm saying is that it's not necessarily that you have a specific place that has to be here. I'm not saying you have to identify this, but you know what place you're going to be. So if you wanted to travel and you wanted to do personal training throughout, identify where you want to be. What resources are you going to have when you go? Okay. And if it's just so happen to be in your truck or your van or your car, have those things ready and make them accessible. Now, think about this. You know, technology is brilliant. So we have cell phones. We do 90% of our work on our cell phones. In fact, the other day, my wife just scanned something with your cell phone, didn't you? You scan and send it to me. You can do a lot of work from anywhere. So it's not necessarily saying, well, Mr. Williams, are you saying that I have to have a location here or a location here? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying you have to know where your location is. That's all. So it don't have to be here. It don't have to be there. It could be in your van. It could be at another place where you're doing something else. You may say, on my break time at my other job, I'm going to do this stuff here. I have to do this. I need to take care of this. It can be anywhere. Or it could be at the facility where you're doing the training. When you're doing something there, because even there, you're still marketing, you're still working, you're still paying your dues. So that's part of all of it. So don't get caught up in, well, this got to be right here. Okay. No, because it can be flexible as long as you clearly understand that's what you're doing. Okay? Next question. Did I answer that? Well enough.
You well enough.
Okay. Do you look like you have more you want to ask?
No, I'm good for right now.
You sure? I didn't overwhelm you with my brilliance.
Not yet.
I have been known to do that. Y'all are laughing. I'm serious. And so look. Which identify what requirements and constraints, and then finally why. Know the specific reasons and purpose and the benefits of setting goals that you're going to set. A general goal would be get in shape, but a specific goal would say join a help club and work out 3 days a week in order. And you can even target that and go a little bit further and say, my specific goal is that I want to lose 10 pounds. And don't look at me and say, no, Mr. Williams, you need to lose 20 pounds. You want to lose 10 pounds. And this is what I'm going to do it. I'm going to join a health club. I'm going to work out 3 days a week. And I'm going to measure my weight. And I'm going to eat like this in order to get to that objective. If you notice, the clearer and more specific the goal is, the better off you're going to be in reaching it. I want to share something with you that happened to me several years ago. I was working in this one school, and I had this one teacher every day or periodically during the week. He would come by where I was standing at in the middle of the hall, and he says, what's the word, what's the inspirational something of the day, or what word do you have for me? And one day he came by, and I may have shared this with some of you before, and he asked me, what's the word that you have? And I said, the word that I have today is prepare to share. Prepare in order to share. And he stopped a minute and he said, well, what do you mean? And this is what I explained to him, because this helps you in your own personal goals. Whenever you are preparing in a manner to increase the quality of someone else's life, or even in your own life, you begin to set goals that are attainable, reachable. And I give you an example. You may be riding down the road and you pass by a nonprofit organization that is reaching out to help underprivileged children. And you said, man, golly, I wished I had more resources that I could give to help them, just financial resources. If you put that in your heart that, hey, listen, I have a goal of increasing my finances in a manner that would allow me to help this particular organization or this particular group to better serve these children. And then you plan according to that goal to establish and to reach that objective. Look at what happens to your quality of life. Because you are preparing in a manner that is going to help others, the quality of your life increase. So as you make more money and you do the things that you need to do to increase your income increases, gives you more freedom to give more, and you continue to build a bigger and stronger income. So I use that because whenever I look at my personal goals, that's what I look at. I look at how do I prepare for my life in order to share it. I like to go back real quick, and I know I'm deviating a little bit from the lesson, but I want to talk about us as people, and many of us have children in here. I remember several years ago when I had actually shared this with this guy, and I was reflecting on it, and I said, you know, in order for me to prepare to share my life more with my children and eventually possibly grandchildren, I need to do some things. Number one, I need to eat better. I need to take care of myself better. I need to exercise and work out. I need to treat myself and spoil myself in a manner that adds to the quality of my life, not necessarily being selfish, but treating myself better in a manner that, like I said, that adds to the quality of my life. So when I began to work out, and I'm thinking like I'm going to work out and I'm going to exercise so that I live a little bit longer, I share more of my life with my family. Look at how it benefits me. So whenever you prepare in order to share, this is what happens. Your quality of life increases. When the pastor or anyone prepares to share, and I remember when we did an assignment several months ago, when you had to do your own assignment, when you prepared in order to share it out, look at how you benefited from it. You were the one who grew. You grew more than anyone else did from your own lesson. So I want you to keep that in mind. So that's just talking about being specific. Then we're talking about being the goal being measurable. Establish concrete criteria for measuring the progress toward the attainment of each goal you set. When you measure your progress, stay on track. I remember when I first got into my master's program in counseling and human development. When I started the program, I found out that there's this many classes you have to take in order to graduate from the program. I don't remember how many classes they were, and not relevant. But what was relevant, I went to the online session or to the education center where I was going to school. And I said, could you print out every class that I need to take? And I put all of those classes on a sheet of paper, one sheet of paper. And you had every one of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and all the way up to 12, or whatever the classes were. And every time I went to a class and I finished that class, I started with one and I would put a check by the class that I was taking. When I finished the class, I put either a pink line through it or a yellow highlighter line through it, said that I've completed that class. So I measured my progress as I went. Now, two things happen. If you establish a goal that is definitely measurable, like I did with completing my master's degree, or talking about that 10 pounds you want to lose, you can look at your progress on your way, and it will inspire you. If you lose 5 pounds, man, and you measured and you wait and say, man, I've lost 5. It's working. You begin to work harder. You say, I can do this. I can push through this. When I got through 3 classes, all of a sudden, all of those other classes didn't look overwhelming. It looked like, oh, I'm just going through the whole process. It's going to take a while. So I took 2 classes. Then I had one that was really hard. It was a math class of some kind, statistics. And I took that one class and I crossed that one out. Like, yeah, now I'm on the road. I took 2 more classes. Okay. And this is through a period of time, a couple of years. But it went by so much faster when I knew I was going toward a specific target and I knew when I was going to be able to finish this particular program. But whenever you set your goals, I have to give you this warning. This is a little caveat that you just have to be aware of. Sometimes we set goals and we have a tool that we're going to measure them by. And what we set up to measure is what we want to see, not what we need to see. Okay? Okay. So there's a way whenever you set your goals that you can say, I'm going to measure this, and it has nothing to do with ultimately you reaching where you want to be. It can't sabotage you. I remember several years ago, my wife and I, this was so bad. So we have the scale in the house, and we were set a goal to lose weight, and we were exercising. And I had put the scale in this one corner in this one room. And we got on the scale the first time, and we weighed, and it was like, okay, we lost a couple of pounds. And we went back and we weighed it again, and our weight was just dropping off. You remember that? Our weight was dropping so fast. And I was like, man, I'm losing some weight. But I noticed my belt wasn't getting any looser. Like,
Where's the weight coming?
pants was fitting as tight as ever. But this weight is coming off. I'm just measuring, boy. My measurement was off. See, what had happened was that the scale had gotten caught on the ledge of the floor and around the house, and it's a ledge about this much. So whenever we weighed ourselves, it didn't go all the way down the way that it was supposed to. So we were lighter than we thought we were. All right? And we're just dropping. I had dropped 15 pounds. Hadn't changed anything. When I realized that, look, this just doesn't make sense. I am not getting accurate information. I said either the scales are broken or something's wrong. My pants are shrinking as fast as I'm losing weight. Whichever one, but something was wrong. And I pulled the scale off the wall. And my true weight came up, and I gained like 2 pounds from when I had started. And I was just like, oh, you're talking about sucking the life out of you. So there's a lot of lessons to learn in this. Number one, make sure that whatever you use as your measurement tool is realistic and it's going to give you the measurement that you truly want. And number two, understand that if you do not use a realistic measuring tool, it could come back and suck the life out of you.
Because you think you done went so far.
Because you thought you've gone so far and you didn't. It's like, I remember one day, no, this is just interesting. I'll use a scenario instead of talking about a situation that happened. But if you're going on a trip somewhere and you start guessing instead of using the road map, and you think you're almost there, only to find out that you took the wrong road and you're way off, 50 miles off your targeted destination. How that sucks the energy out of it. Recovering, you're talking about the longest 50 miles in your life. Trying to recover that 50 miles is just hard on you. It beats you. So know what you're doing and using your measurement tool and make sure that it's realistic. Recently, we had two situations I want to talk about politically that happened, but this will not turn into a political conversation. However, when Mitt Romney was going against President Obama, 2012, I think it was, the measurements that was being used were so skewed because they had literally winning the election. Only for President Obama come back and literally blow him out of the water because of the election. Well, the same thing happened just recently with our new election because they literally had Hillary Clinton winning everything. There was literally a no contest, only to find out that it was completely opposite, and it was embarrassing. So not only were you doing, what was it?
Not a political conversation.
The Russians got involved.
Yeah, but we won't turn this into a political conversation. But I do want to say, because think about people, going back to how it feels when you're not using the right measurement. People were devastated. There were people crying. There were people looking confused. It was like the what was the Oscars confusion the other day when they called the wrong person, and you saw that one photo of everybody looking at the moment that they realized that this was a major mess up. It's like, and that was what it was like. It's the same thing. So make sure that you use measurements that can be are realistic and is going definitely toward your objective. To determine if your goal is measurable, ask the simple question: how much, how many, how will I know when it is accomplished? You know, and then go forward from there, okay? Make sure that your goal is attainable. And if someone don't mind, how much time do we have? Because I don't see it on the...
It's like a little less than 20.
a little bit less than 20.
Here's a question too about how do you know if your goal is realistic?
How do you know if your goal is realistic? I'm going to talk to you about the goal, the realistic aspect. That was number 4 in our conversation here, and this may.
I had a question about realistic.
Okay.
I wanted to wait till you got to it. You might have addressed it, but just in terms of what you consider what's realistic, because like, you know, when the Wright brothers came up with the plane, like to the people in the world at the time, it was like, what are you talking about? Humans aren't meant to fly. So based on what's realistic and attainable, are you judging it off of what's realistic to the rest of the world? Or, I mean, because, you know, things that can be visualized that aren't in existence. So like for somebody like, you know, that's in a family that nobody in his immediate family graduated or, you know, went on to make X amount of dollars, it's like that's not a realistic thing for that person, even though, you know, it technically is based on visualization, but just looking at their circumstances, you know, it wouldn't be realistic based on, you know, I guess a generic meaning of what's realistic. So I just, you know, wanted an elaboration on what you consider realistic.
Okay, I think there's 2 issues that you just brought up. And you said them, believe it or not, in your first part of your question. You talked about the Wright brothers, and you talked about them personally, and then you separated them and said what other people believe. So I think those are 2 separate things, because there's a lot of things that I believe that I can do that no one else knows. I have a clue. In fact, I will tell you, recently I went to a leadership conference in Chapel Hill, and well, I said recently, but it was probably about 3 years ago. And going to the conference, I had to send out a questionnaire to several people. It was like 18 or 19 people, hoping that I got back maybe 9 or 10 responses, because it's like an hour-long questionnaire where they have to talk about me. Well, they rated me and they graded me and they judged me on how they see me. Well, I had to do one on myself. It was so skewed, it was like we were talking about 2 different people. Because I saw myself for who I am and know what I know I'm to be. They saw me for who I project to be. Okay? And those are 2 separate things. So I know my mind, I know what I believe I'm capable of. So when you're talking about realistic, you're talking about what's realistic for you. Now, there's a lot of other people. Now, I'll tell you a good example is, I see ministers. They'll see someone in their church that is a great orator. They can speak, they can talk. People like them a lot, and they immediately assume that person's called to be a pastor. But that person, no, I'm not. I know what I'm all about. You don't. You see me out here Sunday morning. I'm dressed nice. I look nice. You don't hear me say those ugly words behind closed doors that I know I say regularly. You don't see me with the wine in my hand. But that's what you see. But I know. So being realistic is for you. And you have to make that determination. Now, that's number 1. Number 2 is, that was number 1 and 2 of that first part, which is you have other people who perceive you one way and somebody else perceives you this way. Now, the Wright brothers, the other people didn't see, but they didn't have the information that the Wright brothers had. The Wright brothers had some information they believed would work. So they didn't let anyone shut them down. And this is what's important, again, like I said. So that's one aspect of being realistic. The other aspect of being realistic is, can it be done? And so if you are in school and you're in the 9th grade and you're 5 foot 2 inches tall, and that's as tall as you're going to grow, and you want to be a professional basketball player, you're male, you want to be I'll say you're 5'4", and you want to be a professional basketball player where you literally play for the NBA. But you don't join the basketball team. You don't even go try out. You can say, I want to be, but that's not a realistic goal because you're not doing any work to make it happen. Not because you're being 5'4". You're not doing your dues. You're not paying your dues. The 5'4" part actually adds to it and causes more of a problem and a concern. So is it realistic? Now, I don't think it's realistic for me to be a professional bodybuilder at this age and in the 20-something, 30-something year old category. I'm almost 60. Now, I may compete in the adult, or whatever they call it, don't say geriatric, category, because I will, yeah, the seniors. So, but it's not really, so I have to look at what is realistic. And sometimes people set realistic goals, they set goals that are simply not realistic. And I say it in every aspect of your life. So you get yourself a nice car, and this car will fly. I mean, literally 600 plus horsepower anytime you touch the pedal, and it sounds beefy. Okay, it may be bad, but it's not realistic that it can take a 40-degree angle curve at 100 miles an hour. It's not going to happen. You know, so being realistic also requires you to understand your circumstances, your situation, and taking those things into consideration. But it also requires you to know what you're capable of or have an idea of what you're capable of. It also requires you to have a belief in yourself or a belief in what you're about to accomplish. So all of those things play into it. And when we talk about being realistic, in fact, I had used a short basketball player here in my notes. I will give you a little bit more to work with. Okay? Did I answer that to some degree for you?
Cause you touched on everything. I was just trying to figure out what a good point of reference for what's realistic would be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that's only within yourself.
That's only within yourself, and it requires the circumstance and situation that you are in. When you start talking about, and I love this part here, when you talked about the family, where this child could possibly be the first one to go to college in their family. I have that happen all the time. I have that happen all the time. And I have children literally come in who do not believe that they can do it because someone else has told them, this is where you're supposed to be. This is our family. We're not supposed to be the one to go to college and to make the money and to be successful in this field or that field. But when they begin to see themselves differently, and it is attainable because they realize, oh, I can learn just like this person can learn. I can read just like this person can read. And they begin to see those little going back to measurable. They see themselves accomplishing things that is moving them in this direction. They begin to form that belief, that understanding in themselves, and they begin to move forward and pursue. So those things change, and they can change just like that for many people once they begin to see what they can do and see that the resources are available and they're capable of making it happen. Now, you could have a student who said, you know, no one in my family has ever graduated from college. I'm now in the 11th grade and I can see myself doing that. And they start working. And by the time they hit 12th grade, they can see themselves saying, I'm not just going to graduate from college, I can actually see myself having my master's degree. And then when they get into their first year of college, it could change that quick. I'm going for my PhD or my medical degree, MD. And they continue to move forward. So that could happen because everything is in place. They're beginning to see what they're capable of and what's there to stop them other than themselves. 90% of people not achieving their goals is because they either didn't set the right goal that was achievable because it didn't make sense. It was something that they weren't going to do in the first place. And two, they quit before they got there. Okay? All right. So attainable, when we talk about attainable, and this is number 3, so we're talking about specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. Attainable, when you identify goals that are most important to you, you begin to figure out ways you can make them come true. You develop the attitude, the abilities, skills, financial capacity to reach them. And that's where I was talking about, whether it's school or education or whatsoever, You begin to invest in those things that's going to help you achieve, reach your goals. You begin seeing previously overlooked opportunities to bring yourself closer to the achievement of your goals. I used this scenario a while back, if you guys remember, just a refresher. If a person, and this is how goals can, your circumstances can affect your goals. If a person has only $5 on their person, that's all they have, and they don't know where they are going to get their next money from, they could go out easily and go to McDonald's, Burger King, or one of the other places, Arby's, and get them a $5 bill and possibly get back about 3 pennies. That same person, if they are supporting a family, could take that $5 and go inside a Food Line or Publix or whatever, Harris Teeter, and buy a loaf of bread and some meat and get back 3 or 4 pennies and feed 4 or 5 people, maybe even 2 meals. Someone else could take that $5 and says, you know, I'm a little bit hungry, but I want to learn something. And they run to the store and they buy themselves a little pamphlet on a self-help new thing that they can learn a skill. And they say, I'm going to learn this skill and I'm going to suffer through this. And I'll find another way to try to get me some food or something. But I want to learn a skill so that I can take it a little bit further. And the next thing you know, they're investing in the community because they've made money that they can pour back into the community. And then someone else may take that money, that same $5, and pour it and sow it into the lives of others through charity or whatsoever, and then touch people that you have no idea where. Some people overseas who may only need 40 cents to feed them for a day or 2 or 3, you may wind up feeding people, don't tell them whoever they are, for days with that $5 contribution. So you wind up changing depending on what your goals are and what you want to do. You develop the attitudes, the abilities, the skills, the financial capacity. You look at what opportunities are out there and you begin to make those things work for you. You begin seeing those things that you didn't see before, how they're going to work. I remember one day when we were living in Greenville, North Carolina, we were at the house and this one kid comes over. He had graduated from the high school that I was working at previously, and he just shows up at the door. I knew that his family had moved down the same street that we were on, even though we lived in a separate community from where we worked. And this kid shows up, and he was a nice kid. Mario, I remember his name, Mario. Mario was a football player in high school, and he was a beast. The boy could play ball. He could ball. Just get out of his way. I would not want to be hit by him on the football field. He was one of those guys where when I played football, if I saw him coming, I ran faster. They could actually increase my speed because I was getting out of the way. I was not going to get hurt. And Mario, this particular case happened where he came in and he asked me if I had time to talk, and we went out and we got in the car and we rode around, and he just talked to me. And he said, I don't like playing football. He said, I do it because of family, I do it because of this, I do it because of that. And he said, what I want to do is just get a degree in business. I want to move back home, get a degree in business. He was going to this private school and everything. And where he was that he was in a place where he was failing. He was not moving forward in any way, in any kind of way. Because he was caught and torn between 2 or 3 things. So we talked and we discussed ultimately what was his goal and what did he really want to do. And when he realized that this is really what I want to do, and he needed to have that serious conversation with his family, he was able to make some decision. It changed his transportation because he had an issue with his car, changed his living arrangements, it changed his degree focus, and it changed his work. His job. I mean, literally, I know what he went to, and I'm not going to talk about that, but it was great. He took over his life because he clearly identified what he wanted to do. It set the steps in place for him to make them happen, and because he was self-motivated, he was able to go ahead and move forward to make those things come to fruition in his life. You can attain almost any goal you set when you plan your steps wisely, you clearly identify them and establish a time frame that allows you to carry out those steps. I know that clock over there is saying 27 seconds, 26 seconds. Please tell me that that's not true. Okay, I'm going to finish this part here up, and then we'll come back and finish the last part later. So, goals that may have seemed far away and out of reach eventually move closer. Remember what I talked about earlier when I said that when I was working on my master's degree, I put down all the classes I needed, and I just kept crossing them out. As I crossed them out, I saw my goal get closer and closer. Same thing with losing weight, same thing with building a relationship with your partner. All of it requires a little bit more investment, a little bit more investment, a little bit more investment until you ultimately reach your goal. When you list your goals, you build your self-image, you see yourself as worthy of these goals, and you develop the traits and personality that will allow you to possess or grab hold of them or achieve those goals. So my encouragement to you as we finish up this particular session today is to take a look at where you want to be in your life. Is it something that you have control over? Playing the lottery to be a millionaire is not realistic to say that's what I'm banking my life off of. I'm going to be a millionaire one day because I played the lottery. However, looking at how you invest, save, your work ethic, and the jobs that you can have could put you there, just depending on how you achieve it or how you go forward to make it happen. If you waste a lot of money, you can stop wasting money here. Always going out to eat out, going out to the movies all the time, having to buy the most expensive clothes where something else could do and suffice. You can take those things and cut those things and say, I'm going to put my money here if that's what you're going to focus on. But the reality is, if you are realistic in setting your goals to be very specific and attainable, you measure where you're going, you can achieve pretty much anything you set forth in your life. Okay? So next week we'll come back and we'll finish with being realistic, timely, and I'll give you the other reason about the T, which is tangible. Are there any other questions before we close up for today?
What should I do if I have a goal failure?
Say that again.
What should I do if I have a goal failure?
A goal failure?
If I fail my goal?
Oh, well, actually, that is one of the best things that can ever happen to anybody. If you have a goal and you fail, the beautiful thing about failure is there's always a learning opportunity. You can be even better. Remember, when you talk about professional sports people, you find that many of them, when you have a person who's hitting some crazy bat average, he didn't get there by just hitting crazy bat every ball that came at him. He got there by failing a lot and making the adjustments he needed to overcome where he was. Same thing with basketball players, same thing with businesses. I think like one of the most, I think it's Disney, I think it was, and it may not have been Walt Disney. I know there was one person who had failed several times, but they learned from their mistakes. And then they said, okay, I just need to make these adjustments. You can say the same thing when we were talking about weight earlier, losing weight. So you go in, you say, man, I want to lose weight. And you go in and you start going to the gym and you find yourself working out hard. But what you didn't realize, you were eating more because you were burning more calories. Mm-hmm. And you wind up weighing yourself and you've gained a little weight. Oh, well, that's a learning tool. It's like, oh, no, don't let me get depressed here. What I need to do is make my adjustment, learn from it, and go back at it again. So each time that you fail, your goal that you wanted to reach, review it, explore where the failure took place at, make your adjustments, go again, because in that failure is your growth. Okay? Next question. I think I did well on that question, by the way. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Next question.
Should your, of course, should your short-term goals set up your long-term goals?
One of the things that they really encourage you to do is to set long-term goals and use your short term to just go toward those goals, because you have a long-term objective over here, and then you have your measuring steps, which are your little short-term achievements. But another thing that most people want to encourage you is to set up a long-term or difficult goal to reach. Whenever you set up easy goals, you're not motivated to do them. You're just not. I mean, if you have one assignment to do in a class, how long do you put it off? To the day before. But if you have 8 assignments to do, you go to work. You get them done. Get it done. That's what you do. So, and that's important for you to understand. So it's not just enough. It's not just enough that no problem. That you set goals, but make them not only you can attain them, but they're not so simple where they don't pull or require anything out of you. You know, so you do want to have your short term go toward your ultimate long term goal, but you want to have a really nice, good long term goal sitting out there. You know, completing your bachelor's degree or your master's degree, or producing your first album after you've gotten all your songs right. Yeah, that is good stuff out there. The other ones just work toward it, you know. But I'll tell you, when I was taking chemistry in school, they were talking about it, and it still doesn't make sense to me because I don't understand chemistry. But they talked about it, maybe the pastor understands this more since that's his area of expertise, biology and chemistry and stuff like that. But they talked about the greatest change occurs faster when there are 2 extremes. So if you pour hot water on a piece of ice, the ice is going to melt quick. So it's extreme to that, so you're going to see it happen. Well, if you take cold water and you pour it on ice, the ice is not going to melt that fast. Well, it's the same thing when you start looking at your goals. The further that bad boy is out, the harder you work to get there. The closer it becomes, you begin to relax, let your guard down. And sometimes it passes you by because you let your guard down. So it's always good. What I did when I was in the military, I kept a 5-year goal always in front of me every single year. And I was always trying to reach that. 5 years. Wherever I was, if you ask me where you're going to be in 5 years, I can tell you this is what my goal is. And I will be working to get there. So I never caught up to where I was. I never caught my goal. I always went past. Whenever I'm teaching and working with students in school, I never focus on them getting their high school diploma. That's automatic. I understand that. We're working toward getting toward your high school diploma. But my focus is past high school, where you're going to be down the road. College, military, your own business, working. Because if I just focus on the high school diploma, if you fall short on that, you don't graduate. But if you fall short on starting your own business or going to the military, at least you have your degree behind you. Always try to project out. Okay. Next question. You had something?
No.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Pastor, that's it.
Thank you for tuning into Tabernacle Talk with Tabernacle Christian Church. If this Bible study has been a blessing to you, or if you have a question concerning the Word of God that you would like to have addressed, you can contact us via email at tabtalk2016. That is tabtalk2016@gmail.com. For more information on Tabernacle Christian Church, you can visit our website at www.tccenter.net. Until next time, go in peace and serve the Lord and be led by the Holy Spirit. God bless.